Well, once again, good morning and welcome. Those of you that have heard me preach before know that I like to start out with a little humor. So here's today's little humor. Seems there was this pastor who was away for the weekend. Came back to town and he saw one of his members at the grocery store. So he was curious if he was missed or not. So he asked her, "How did the assistant pastor do on Sunday morning?" The lady threw up her hands. She said, "Oh, Pastor, I hate to tell you this, but it was a very poor sermon. His delivery was fine, but the material was lacking. Nothing in it at all. It was the worst sermon I've heard in a long time." Now, the pastor was a little perplexed because he had heard the young man preach before, and he did just fine. But secretly, he was just a little pleased to know that he had been missed and that he couldn't easily be replaced. So later in the week, he saw the assistant pastor and he said, "Well, how did it go on Sunday morning?" And the young fellow smiled and said, "Excellent," he said with confidence. "However, you had to leave so quickly that I didn't have time to prepare anything myself, so I hope you don't mind, but I preached one of your sermons." So I'll give you assurance today, this is indeed my sermon. This isn't one of Reverend Corey's. So he's got nothing to worry about when he watches this YouTube video. So our theme today is guiding the flock through the pasture. And it's all about shepherd and sheep. So the word shepherd is a commonly used word in the Bible. I did a little quick research. There are 102 occurrences of the word in about 43 different passages. It's used about 3 times as often in the Old Testament as in the New. It's used as both a noun to describe the role of God or Jesus or other prophets or actual people who herd the sheep. And it's used as a verb to describe the action of people that match what a shepherd does, as in shepherding or feeding the flock. Now, outside of the 23rd Psalm, "God is my shepherd, I shall not want," today's scripture is probably the next best known passage about Jesus as the Good Shepherd. In it, Jesus tells us a few key things describing himself as the Good Shepherd. "I am the gate for the sheep. Whoever enters by me will be saved and will come and go in and go out and find pasture. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. I am the Good Shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. The Good Shepherd is willing to die for the sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to the fold. I must bring them also." So now, in Jesus' time, many of the Israelites were sheep herders. In any village, there would probably be a number of flocks of sheep, each flock of which would be a gathering of sheep from many different households. For convenience at night, all of the flocks would be kept in a common area, or a fold, which was a simple enclosure where the sheep could be contained and protected from thieves and predators. It had a circular wall, maybe about 10 feet high, around it, and there was only one gate through which the sheep would enter and exit. One person was assigned as the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper would be stationed in the doorway or the gateway, keeping the sheep safely inside and any danger to the sheep outside. The various shepherds would also enter through this same gate to gather their flocks. So in the morning, each shepherd reported to the gatekeeper, who recognized them and let them into the fold. Each shepherd would then lead their flock out to pasture. Now, each shepherd had a distinct call or a whistle, sometimes a small flute, which the sheep would recognize and follow. So in addition to their own distinctive call, sometimes the shepherd gave their sheep names, and the sheep would recognize the names too. Although the flocks had been mingled all together, the sheep of each flock knew its own shepherd's call, and each would follow its own shepherd and no other. So this was very handy when several flocks ended up at the same watering place as they started walking away. Then at the end of the day, each shepherd would bring their sheep back into the fold for safekeeping through the night. Jesus' analogy of the Good Shepherd and being the gate for the sheep used an example of something in everyday life that most people of the time could relate to. However, that didn't necessarily mean that the Pharisees and the religious leaders of the time understood what Jesus was telling them. Many of them thought Jesus just had a demon and was a madman. Jesus used the analogy of a good shepherd who is recognized and enters by the gate versus the thieves and the bandits who climbed over the wall as a way of distinguishing himself from the corrupt Pharisees and religious leaders. The Pharisees certainly thought of themselves as the gatekeepers of the dominion of God in Jesus' day. But Jesus exposes them as wicked shepherds who didn't care for the hurting and troubled sheep, and who used and abused the sheep of God's flock for their own personal gain. Jesus calls them out as hypocrites, for they were the ones that were harassing the Jewish Christians, expelling them from the synagogues. The Pharisees and the religious leaders, the false shepherds, did not care about the flock. And Jesus' words spelled out that a true shepherd immediately knows and tenderly cares for their flock and places the interests of the flock above their own. Jesus makes it very clear that he alone is truly the good shepherd. Capital G, capital S. He takes care of his flock, and he is willing to lay down his life for the safety and well-being of the flock. He alone gives salvation, safety, and abundant life. He gave up his life that we might indeed have salvation. Through this analogy, Jesus is telling everyone that he is not a false shepherd or a false Messiah who came to deceive. He is not Satan or just masquerading as a shepherd or a minister. He is not a hired hand who runs away at the first sign of danger. He is the good shepherd who will care for his flock. So out of this reading today comes a twofold directive for us: to believe and not be deceived. We identify with being Christians, and thus we say that we believe in Jesus as the Christ, the Messiah. I think if I asked each and every one of you here today if you believe that Jesus brings us salvation, you would probably answer a resounding yes. After all, that's why we're Christians. But you know, Jesus lived 2,000 years ago. And it's easy to keep him locked up in our lives as a sort of relic. Which begs the questions, do we still see Jesus today as the Good Shepherd, taking care of us, feeding us, and actively leading us to green pastures? Does Jesus actually speak to us today? Or is it only his life examples that really guide us in our life? Do we allow Jesus to be the living Christ in our lives? For me, I personally think that the answer should be E, all of the above. You know, one of those test questions that's kind of easy to say, oh, I'll just check that one. It's everything. Personally, I believe that the Bible is a pretty accurate record of Jesus' actions and words and teachings. What is recorded about Jesus is enough for me, as a Christian, to strive to pattern my life after. We are taught that if we try and live our lives as Jesus did, then we are striving to live a godly life. That if we really care for others and help those in need, then we are indeed living a Christian life. If we truly love each other as ourselves, then we are helping to bring about God's realm on this earth today. That is the core of how we should try and live our lives. But it is more than that, I think. It is about actively seeing the living Christ in our daily lives. For me, Jesus' actions and teachings influence me every day, both consciously and subconsciously. Do I make decisions that affect my nephews in a way that lets them know that they are loved and cared for? Do I show concern and love for each and every one of you here at MCC in a way that is comforting and genuine? Do I lift a friend or a stranger up when I see them hurting or upset? What we do as individuals to care for those around us speaks to the living Christ here in our lives. But I also see the living Christ in the actions of all of those around me. When I see someone being kind, caring, or loving, or taking time to support someone in need, I see Jesus alive in this world. When I see lawmakers and doctors and social workers and CEOs and others in leadership positions actually providing for those who are sick, who are poor, who are struggling, and putting words and policies into action, then I see Jesus alive in this world. When I see someone paying it forward, either in return for someone who has helped them in the past, or just for no reason other than to be generous, then I see Jesus alive in this world. Jesus spent time with and helped the sick and the lowly and those who lost their way. When we do the same, we present the living Christ to the world. But, and there's always a but, there are those in this world who are deceivers, false shepherds, and false mediators of salvation. And it's important that we see them for who they are. As with most of the Pharisees and religious leaders of Jesus' time, there are many people who proclaim themselves to be the true shepherds of the flock today. They present themselves as righteous teachers of the word and preachers of God's will. Yet, their behaviors and actions are sinful and anything but righteous. Their messages lock people out of the dominion of God, much like the Pharisees did in Jesus' time. And their messages often have words of sin and hate and death rather than love and forgiveness and salvation. They preach absolutes. They promise abundant life and riches, especially if you give money or behave in a certain way or treat them as if they were all powerful. Their interpretations of scriptures are often selective, out of context, and flat out not truthful. I think it's important for us to weed out these false shepherds and religious leaders from our lives, for they are hypocritical and not examples of a good shepherd, and definitely don't follow the teachings of Jesus, the only true good shepherd. And those who are shaky in their belief or still need to hear the true message of Jesus' shepherding and of God's love, well, they need to hear what Jesus' message is really about. Not through threats of eternal damnation if they don't meet expectations of the preacher or the congregation, and not through words of exclusion from salvation, but through messages of Jesus' example of loving others and through his words of salvation. But you know, there's more to today's message than just believing and not being deceived. While believing in Jesus as the Good Shepherd is the bedrock of our belief in salvation and life eternal, it is our actions and our deeds that truly speak to whether we believe in the Good Shepherd. It is following Christ's example and heeding the calling of God that we live our lives of being true Christians in today's world. As I mentioned, our actions do speak to the living Christ in the world today. But our actions also speak to being called by God and by Jesus to help in the shepherding duties in this world. While we can never be the one true good shepherd, as our scripture refers to Jesus, we can certainly be assistant shepherds, working with the living Christ in gathering the flock. That's more than just being a hired hand. Remember, hired hands run away when the going gets tough or demanding. This is truly caring for one another and caring about one another's lives and those in need, their hurts, their emptiness. What I want, what I deserve, how much will it cost me? It's up to each of us to remind everyone that there is a different message. And that message is that Jesus is the true path to salvation. and that the world is indeed filled with people who care about other people, about their well-being and about their spiritual journey. We are called by God to help shepherd people to greener pastures, to help them be fed by God's love, and to help them believe in salvation through Jesus' life and resurrection. So the good news from today's scripture is that Jesus is indeed our shepherd, the one who leads us to abundant life in green pastures, the one who will save us, the one who laid down his life so that we might find salvation. And through Jesus' example and teaching, God calls us to help shepherd others in the flock to Jesus, to help them to look to Jesus as the gate to eternal life. We have the gifts of the Spirit and God's love to help us in this calling. And we have the living Christ by our side as we travel on this journey. So next time you see a fellow member of the flock who seems to be faltering, support them, help them, care for them, and remind them of the true shepherd who is there to lead them through the pasture and back into the fold, where it is safe and warm and loving. Amen.